Idris Elba entered the exclusive gala, all eyes turning toward him. However, instead of admiration, he was met with discrimination and contempt. Why would a global superstar like Idris face cold stares and disrespect in a space that was supposed to celebrate achievements? When he chose to confront and respond, the price he paid would make everyone reflect. This was not just a personal struggle, but a battle for a fairer world. The evening unfolded at a lavish post-Oscar party, bathed in dazzling lights, with countless famous faces glowing under the spotlight. Idris Elba, who had just received glowing praise for his role in The Broken Crown, was the center of attention. As his car pulled up, the driver opened the door and Idris stepped out, his polished shoes making a soft click on the red carpet, steady and confident. Flashbulbs exploded. The paparazzi scrambled for the best shot, while fans beyond the barricade cheered his name, their admiration filling the cool Los Angeles air. But Idris, with his familiar composure, simply smiled lightly and maintained his poised demeanor. Fame had taught him that every step, every gesture mattered. Always tread carefully. He knew that the spotlight wasn't just a part of his career. It was a responsibility to inspire those watching from afar. Inside the opulent venue, everything exuded grandeur. Velvet curtains, golden trim, and the soft strains of a jazz orchestra filling the air with an atmosphere of elegance. Yet beneath this dazzling veneer, something else lingered, a subtle but chilling undercurrent that Idris couldn't ignore. He felt the weight of scrutinizing gazes, sharp and piercing like needles against his skin, whether they were fleeting glances or drawn-out stares. These silent but heavy looks seemed to remind him, as they often did, that no matter how far he had come, he was still an outsider. Faint murmurs, nearly drowned out by the soothing music, echoed louder in his mind, carrying undertones that pricked at his composure. Disappointment crept in, familiar yet cutting, stirring memories of years spent fighting to prove his worth in a world that often felt unwelcoming. Idris wondered, amidst this dazzling atmosphere, if there was truly a space here for him. This was supposed to be a night of celebration, a moment to revel in his accomplishments. But instead, the grandeur of the room only magnified the barriers he had yet to overcome, drawing his attention to the unyielding divides that still stood between him and full acceptance. Seated among his closest friends, actors, producers, and directors he had worked with since his early days, laughter filled the room, bringing warmth and camaraderie. But when the server arrived, there was an awkwardness in his manner. The servant's posture was hunched, his eyes repeatedly flicking to Idris with clear discomfort. When it was Idris' turn to order, he answered simply, "I'll have the filet mignon, medium, with asparagus." The server nodded, but then hesitated before asking in a tone laced with subtle disdain, "Would you like the wine list, sir?" Idris smiled lightly and replied, "No need. We'll take a bottle of Chateau Lafite, Rothschild 2005 for the table." The server's eyebrows arched slightly in surprise, but he merely nodded and walked away. Idris glanced at his friend Jared, who shrugged lightly in response as if he were already accustomed to such situations. Yet, deep inside, Idris knew that every moment like this was an opportunity for him to demonstrate calmness and patience, not just to face challenges in the industry, but to also confront the uncomfortable prejudices that still linger in society. As the evening wore on, the server's lack of attentiveness became glaringly obvious. Drinks arrived late, and food was delayed. Initially, Idris thought it was just a busy night, but when a couple at the adjacent table, who had arrived later, were served before them, he couldn't help but recognize the discrimination. One person in a nearby group muttered, "Who is he?" with a tone full of doubt. It was a simple question, but it carried with it a clear sense of bias, as though his presence was somehow out of place in that environment. Idris could feel the coldness in the air, the subtle but unmistakable looks, even if no one spoke openly. Whispers began to circle more audibly, and despite his efforts to stay focused on his conversation, Idris could feel them creeping in. One man at the neighboring table, dramatically swirling his wine glass, spoke up, "These stars think they own the place, but money can't buy culture." Idris heard it, but kept his gaze fixed on his plate. However, Jared couldn't keep his composure, whispering, "Did you hear that?" Idris responded calmly. I heard. The man continued, his voice dripping with mockery. Talent's not enough. You need to fit in. You need to belong here. Some people will never make it. The word struck like a sharp blade, cutting deep into Idris. It was a remark he'd heard too many times throughout his life. Discrimination was always the same. No matter how hard Idris tried, no matter what he achieved, he would always be seen as an outsider. Gently placing his napkin on the table, he stood up. His tall, imposing figure and commanding presence seemed to silence the room. He turned toward the man's table, his expression calm but determined, and his voice carried an undeniable weight. Excuse me, Idris began, his voice steady but unmistakably sharp. Is there something you'd like to say directly to me? The man looked up, his face showing clear surprise and discomfort. I was just making a comment, he hastily said, trying to sound innocent. A comment? Idris repeated, his tone calm but carrying an undeniable edge. Interesting, because it sounds more like an insult. But perhaps I misunderstood. The man recoiled, his confidence shattering under Idris' unwavering gaze. He swallowed hard, attempting to deflect. I didn't mean anything by it, just trying to have some fun, he stammered, attempting to explain himself. Idris did not back down. He took a step closer, the tension in the room thick enough to cut with a knife. Idris leaned in slightly, his voice low but tense. Making fun at the expense of others isn't fun. That's racism, and I've spent my whole life facing it. So let me make it clear. I'm here, just as worthy as you, if not more. His words hit like a hammer, shattering the man's smug self-assurance. The man was left speechless, unable to muster a reply under the intensity of Idris's unwavering stare. The entire restaurant seemed frozen in place, every eye fixed on the confrontation. Idris, calm and resolute, stood tall as though he had won a battle, not just for himself, but for everyone like him who had never been properly seen or respected. As he sat back down, Idris' mind drifted to the past. He thought back to his days in Hackney, London, growing up in a working-class neighborhood filled with challenges. His parents, immigrants from Sierra Leone and Ghana, had instilled in him the value of relentless hard work. But no amount of effort could shield him from the wounds of racism. He remembered auditioning for a hit British TV show when the casting director said, "You're very good, but we're looking for someone the audience can connect with." He stormed out of the room, furious, fully aware of what they were implying. Idris clearly remembered that audition, where his eyes couldn't hide his disappointment. He had prepared meticulously, studied the script, and rehearsed tirelessly, but all of it seemed to be ignored because of the underlying prejudice. The casting director's words hit him like a slap in the face, making him feel that his efforts were undervalued simply because his skin color didn't fit the image they were searching for. He couldn't help but wonder if this was a reflection of the larger society he was living in. Years later, when he landed the role of Stringer Bell on The Wire, Idris thought he had broken through every barrier, but even then, he faced doubt. Critics questioned why a British actor would play an American gangster, as if his career mattered less than where he was from. They viewed him through the lens of racial difference, rather than acknowledging his talent and ability. These questions not only frustrated Idris, but also made him realize that his path was still long. Every step in his career, whether successful or not, reflected an ongoing battle to break through the barriers society placed on him simply because of the color of his skin. Back at the restaurant, the tension remained thick in the air. The waiters steered clear of their table, and soon, the restaurant manager arrived. A thin man with sparse hair approached, his face apologetic. "Mr. Elba," he began, his voice low, "I sincerely apologize for the discomfort tonight. I assure you, this is not how we operate." Idris stared at him for a long moment, his expression unreadable, but the frustration inside him was palpable. He wasn't looking for mere words of apology, having grown all too familiar with empty apologies. "An apology is a start," he finally said. "But the real question is, what are you doing to ensure this doesn't happen again?" The manager's face reddened, his throat tightened, as if he wasn't sure how to answer in a way that would ease the tension in the room. "We'll review our policies, organize additional training, anything to address this issue," he replied. Idris nodded, but his eyes never left the manager. He didn't want to settle for empty promises, nor did he want just a casual conversation about change. He added, "This isn't just about me. It's about everyone who walks in here and doesn't receive the respect they deserve." A moment of silence hung in the air, and the manager could only lower his head that night. In his hotel room, the city lights illuminated the space. Idris opened his phone, scrolling through social media, his mind a chaotic jumble of thoughts. Finally, he made up his mind to take action. He opened Twitter and wrote, "Last night reminded me that no matter how far you've come, racism always finds a way to show up. But silence is not the answer. Speak out, stand firm, and demand better for yourself and for those who cannot speak for themselves. Dignity matters. Change starts here." The post went live, and within hours, it created a powerful wave. Fans, colleagues, and ordinary people shared their own stories of racism, creating a powerful and widespread effect. Each story served as a reminder that racism is not an issue for one person, but for society as a whole. The shared experiences of individuals with similar backgrounds ignited a spirit of unity, giving hope that change could begin with each individual. The restaurant, now under public scrutiny, announced it would implement a complete overhaul. They would collaborate with organizations to roll out diversity and inclusion training and commit to creating a space where every customer feels welcome. While these actions somewhat eased public opinion, there is still much work to be done to truly change society's perceptions. Idris' story sparked broader conversations in the media about racism in elite spaces. Talk shows, podcasts, and news outlets discussed the incident, with many praising Idris for confronting it calmly and resolutely. But for Idris, the real victory wasn't in the praise. It was in the voices that had long been silenced, those who had felt unseen and unheard, now finding the courage to speak up. This is the change that Idris hoped for. Not the fleeting applause, but the awakening and encouragement for those who had been oppressed in silence to stand up and fight for their rights. Months later, Idris stood on the set of his latest project, a historical film about a black freedman who fought against insurmountable odds. This role felt particularly close to him, almost like a reflection of his own journey. As the director signaled to start, Idris stepped into the frame, embodying a man who had overcome adversity with unyielding willpower. In that moment, he realized that his platform wasn't just a gift, it was a responsibility. The fight against racism was far from over, but Idris knew one thing for sure. As long as he had a voice, he would use it to challenge injustice and inspire change. Under the spotlight, he stood unwavering, unshaken. The hours of filming, though seemingly routine, were monumental for Idris. Each scene wasn't just about work. It was about embodying everything he had fought for and was continuing to fight for. The pride he felt in the role came not only from professional recognition, but from the fact that he could use his work as a tool for change. He recalled moments from the past when he faced cold stares, unjust judgments simply because of the color of his skin. But now, standing there, he was stronger than ever, a symbol for all those who had been trampled upon. With each role he took on, he wasn't just creating art, he was making a difference in society. Though the road ahead was filled with challenges, Idris no longer felt alone. He knew that with every story he told, every character he brought to life, he was reminding the world of human rights, fairness, and the importance of never giving up. And even though the fight against racism would be long, Idris was proud to know that he would always be a part of that change. And when it was all over, Idris understood one thing. The road ahead had no finish line. It was only a new beginning, for a future where there was no room for discrimination, where everyone could stand tall beneath the same sky. This story is a powerful reminder of the strength of courage and persistence in the fight against discrimination. Have you ever faced challenges like Idris? How do you stand up when treated unfairly? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your voice could spark a great change in the community. If this story inspires you, don't hesitate to share it with your friends and family to spread the message of respect and fairness. Thank you so much for your continued support of the channel. We truly appreciate each and every one of you. During the content creation process, there may have been some small mistakes, and we hope you'll kindly overlook them. Wishing everyone happiness, peace, and good health in life. Stay tuned for more.